chosen one. You didn't land here by coincidence. This moment was written for you. You've been asking for clarity, for confirmation, for a sign that you're not crazy, for outgrowing what no longer serves you. And this is it. This is your divine reminder. You're not broken. You're becoming. You're not falling apart. You're realigning. You're not too much. You're exactly as powerful as you were always meant to be. Let's get one thing straight. If you're hearing this, it means you are part of the few, the rare, the chosen. You are not like the rest. You feel things deeper. You see through the masks. You've carried battles in silence, cried behind strength, and smiled through storms. And yet, you rise, again and again. Not because life has been easy, but because something in you refuses to settle for chains when you were built for freedom. So lean in. This isn't just another message. It's your spiritual fuel. It's your confirmation. It's your wake-up call to remember who the hell you are. You're not here to fit in. You're here to disrupt. You're here to shake systems. You're here to break patterns generations deep. You are the storm they didn't see coming, the shift they can't explain. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. While they're stuck in old games, you're rewriting the rules. You're healing. It's dangerous because now you can't be guilted, tamed, or controlled. And that's your power. This is your time. Your energy is sacred. Your voice is holy. And your journey, it's about to ignite someone else's breakthrough. So take a deep breath, sit up a little taller, and feel this in your bones. You are chosen. Let's go. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. Once it seemed safer to dim your own light than to risk being noticed. Blending into the background felt like the only defense in a world where honesty often came with punishment. Not because you lacked feeling, but because revealing it felt like handing someone a blade. The quiet became a costume, worn to shield yourself from judgment, from dismissal, from labels that sought to shrink you. Through trials, some invisible, some unbearable, you were shaped by environments that equated stillness with goodness, invisibility with harmony. Every time you wanted to say, "This isn't okay," a louder voice inside warned, "Don't make it worse." You adapted by shrinking, edited yourself down to something more acceptable, less demanding, easier to digest. But beneath that composure, a tempest stirred. Looking for purpose and peace? Hit subscribe and start the journey. And then something shifted. Maybe it arrived through solitude's silence, or the aftermath of loss, or a sudden clarity like lightning through fog. However it came, it peeled away the layers of self-erasure. What emerged wasn't a polished echo of others' expectations, but an authentic resonance pulsing with inner truth. This was no longer a whisper molded by survival, but a declaration rooted in awareness. No longer a tongue tied in deference, but a presence grounded in clarity. Not all welcomed this change. Some recoiled, unsettled by the strength they once mistook for softness. They called it defiance. They called it ego. But they were simply witnessing your alignment. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. You realigned with your essence. You no longer bend yourself into silence for the comfort of others. You do not dilute your boundaries for the sake of keeping the peace. You do not pretend, appease, or shrink when confronted with misalignment. Because the truth no longer burns inside you, it shines outward. Your expression disrupts old patterns. It severs the grip of those who relied on your compliance. It unravels dynamics built on your quiet consent. They can no longer project their comfort onto your restraint, nor twist your stillness into submission. Their discomfort with your presence is not your burden to carry. This voice, yours, carries weight, not because it's loud, but because it's real. It is not designed to soothe those who benefit from distortion. It's here to carve space for truth. And while it may unsettle the structures that once benefited from your silence, it also liberates. First you, then those who hear it and remember their own. Keep speaking. The shift has already begun. There was a time when exhaustion was mistaken for generosity, when depletion felt like devotion. Giving wasn't a choice. It was a rhythm, one that played in the background of every interaction, every relationship. The desire to uplift, to comfort, to be reliable ran so deep, it blurred into identity. Nothing was asked, yet everything was offered. Time, effort, attention, even pieces of the soul that should have never been on the table. That openness, once a gift, became a weakness exploited by those who only saw opportunity. They took and took, not out of need, but out of habit. They mistook kindness for permission. They called it love, but it was convenience. While one heart burned to bring warmth, theirs simply extended empty hands. And the balance was never questioned, until the fire dimmed. Eventually, something internal cracked the surface. Maybe it was a quiet realization. Maybe it came through weariness that no rest could fix. But slowly, the pattern unraveled. It became clear that not everyone deserved front-row access to that kind of light. That attention isn't always love. That reliance isn't always connection. That being drained isn't the same as being devoted. With time came insight. What was once assumed to be noble was unmasked as self-abandonment. The need to be indispensable was revealed for what it was, a craving for worth in the eyes of others. But that hunger dissolved the moment inner value was reclaimed. And when that happened, everything shifted. Now there are lines, clear, calm, firm, not erected from bitterness, but carved from understanding. The heart still cares, but not at its own expense. The soul still opens, but not to those who only seek to occupy space. Those accustomed to endless access now feel the door close, not with anger, but with finality. They're unsettled, not because anything was taken, but because what they freely consumed is no longer on offer. The version of the self that bent to accommodate their emptiness has retired. The version that apologized for needing space, for feeling drained, for wanting peace, has evolved. This presence, this energy, it's been refined, and what remains is intentional, grounded, quietly powerful. The ones who once benefited from the chaos may label the calm as cold, the strength as arrogance. But their discomfort is not the problem. It's the echo of losing control. This clarity doesn't scream. It doesn't explain. It doesn't negotiate. It simply is. And in its stillness lies an unmistakable truth. No one is owed your light. It's not a resource to be rationed. It's a sanctuary to be honored. And now, it shines only where it's respected. There comes a turning point where the echo of outside voices fades into the background, and the inner one finally takes the lead. The compulsion to fit molds not made for you dissolves. The old need to be accepted, praised, or even simply tolerated by others no longer dictates your choices. Approval, once chased like breath in deep water, is now just noise that no longer determines your direction. There was a phase when every move felt like it needed permission, when being liked was confused with being safe. You walked on eggshells, sculpting yourself into shapes that made others more comfortable, thinking their applause could somehow anchor your worth. You silenced your instincts just to match the room, masked discomfort with politeness, bent without being asked, all for a sense of belonging that never really belonged to you. It wasn't always obvious. The currency of control was subtle. Glances, silence, the withdrawal of warmth. They didn't tie you down with ropes, they fenced you in with expectations. You were rewarded for being agreeable, punished for stepping out of line. Not by force, but by withdrawal, by disapproval disguised as love. And you absorbed it, believing that who you were had to be negotiated. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. But something deep shifted. That version of self, molded by fear and compromise, began to fall away. The illusion cracked, and in its place, a clarity emerged. No title, no validation, no smile from the crowd could define you anymore. Because the moment your truth became your compass, external praise lost its hold. Now you walk in your own rhythm. No permission slips, no need to shrink. You no longer translate your authenticity into something digestible for others. You don't water down your presence. You don't look for a nod before you speak your vision. That unease others feel when you stand fully in yourself. That's their discomfort, not your responsibility. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. The shift is undeniable. Those who once nudged your decisions with guilt, with conditional affection, with subtle judgment, they can feel the difference. Their leverage is gone. Their silent rules no longer followed. The one they could bend with a glance, coax with a frown, manipulate with indifference, has evolved. Now there are no games to play, no performances to maintain. You don't beg for space, you take it. You don't chase after praise, you walk with purpose. And those who relied on your uncertainty now face a truth they didn't expect. You don't need them to feel whole. You never did. They may call it arrogance, distance, change, but what it really is sovereignty. It's not rebellion, it's return. Not defiance, but recognition. And in this space, there is no more auditioning for rooms you were born to lead. You've stepped out of the waiting line and into your own alignment. Let the discomfort rise. It only means you've stopped playing small. It takes extraordinary courage to turn inward and decide you are no longer at war with yourself. That kind of shift doesn't happen on a whim. It's born from surviving what should have broken you, from standing back up when every voice around and within told you to stay down. It's not surface deep, not polished for show. It's a quiet reclamation, a return. The path there wasn't graceful. There were years spent doubting every strength, echoing every insult that was ever handed to you. You learned to wear perfection like armor, hoping it would earn affection, hoping someone else's acceptance could fill the cavern you hadn't yet touched. You gave all you had to prove you deserved something you already possessed. But you didn't know that yet, so you exhausted yourself in pursuit. You tried to heal others while your own soul sat unattended. You allowed yourself to be underestimated, disrespected, dismissed, not because you lacked value, but because you forgot how to see it. And some noticed. They benefited from your blind spots. It was easier for them when you were uncertain, easier when you needed approval to feel whole. But then came the unraveling, and with it, the rebuilding. Slowly, steadily, you started listening to the parts of you that had long been silenced. The tone changed. You no longer echoed your wounds. You began speaking from your wisdom. You gave yourself grace. You made room for rest without guilt, space for boundaries without apology, distance from disorder without shame. Looking for purpose and peace? Hit subscribe and start the journey. What emerged from that process was a kind of love that doesn't beg or bargain. A love that no longer needs to be proven through exhaustion. You no longer fill your days chasing after people who walked away or trying to reassemble connections that only existed to mirror your insecurity. You are no longer the apology. You are the arrival. And yes, it unsettles the ones who thrived on your self-doubt. Those who once could provoke you with a sigh, a silence, a sideways glance, now face someone who stands unshaken. They mistake your calm for arrogance, your peace for ego. But they're simply witnessing the loss of access. Because now, their approval holds no weight. Their criticism finds no place to root. Their absence no longer echoes. You've learned to offer yourself the very thing you were seeking from everyone else. You do not hustle for worth. You do not stretch to be accepted. You are not hungry for scraps of love. You are the feast now, and the ones who preferred you small, manageable, dependent. They don't recognize this version. This version doesn't beg to be chosen. This version honors time, protects peace, embraces solitude, and speaks truth without trembling. This version no longer molds to fit the narrative of others. This version, finally, is loved by the only one who matters, the self. There's something undeniable about quiet transformation. It doesn't ask for attention, yet it shifts everything around it. Without intending to disrupt, your evolution became a contrast. Just by existing in your new alignment, you stirred waters others worked hard to keep still. The change wasn't loud. There were no announcements, no confrontations, but somehow your presence started rearranging the unspoken truths in the room. It wasn't the words you said. It was the ones you didn't need to. The way you moved different. The way you chose stillness when provoked. Chose clarity when chaos was expected. You stopped participating in games built on old versions of you, and that unsettled those who depended on your predictability. They weren't ready for your neutrality. They weren't ready for your growth to quietly dismantle the lies they told themselves. No spotlight was cast, yet their insecurities surfaced. Your peace highlighted their unrest. Your boundaries magnified their avoidance. What you shared in silence echoed louder than any confrontation. You didn't need to list their flaws. Your healing made the contrast impossible to ignore. Your wholeness turned into a reflection, revealing the fractures they tried to keep hidden. Not everyone received that reflection with grace. Some recoiled, not because of anything you did, but because who you've become shows them what they've refused to face. Your presence disrupted their denial. Your strength interrupted their story. Your calmness disrupted their chaos. They began to pull back, not from harm, but from the mirror. What they called change was actually your return. What they called distance was actually your boundary. What they labeled too much was simply your refusal to dilute yourself anymore. And in truth, they weren't reacting to you, but to the absence of the old you, the one who tolerated their projections, the one who absorbed their discomfort. That version no longer exists. You never needed to accuse them. Your consistency did that on its own. You never needed to explain. Your peace said more than words could. And now, even your silence speaks volumes. The mask of perfection they wore begins to slip around you. Their performances falter. Their excuses don't echo the same way. Because your integrity is a quiet contrast to their pretense. But that's not your burden. It was never your task to soften your glow so others wouldn't be reminded of their shadows. You don't owe them that comfort. Let them wrestle with their reflection. Let them label you if they must. Their unrest is not your failure. It's their own call to confront what they've buried. And the truth is, some would rather preserve illusion than welcome change. They'd rather stay in roles where they are never accountable. And so, when you step out of that play entirely, the stage begins to collapse. Your transformation didn't call them out. It called them up. But not everyone is ready to rise. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. One of the clearest marks of deep internal change is the quiet in your spirit that no longer shatters at the sound of provocation. Not because the world stopped testing you, but because you stopped letting it dictate your temperature. What used to ignite storms inside you now barely flickers. Where once there were automatic responses, now there is stillness. Not from apathy, but from strength. There was a time when every whisper of judgment struck a chord, when glances felt like daggers and silence felt like betrayal. You were always on edge, interpreting every shift, bracing for disappointment, measuring your peace against someone else's behavior. And so you reacted, often, desperately, desiring to be understood, to be seen rightly, to be cleared of false blame. But the more you tried to defend your name, the more you handed others power over your identity. And some learned how to use that. They fed off your unease. Conflict became a tool, tension, a weapon. They could spark a fire with a smirk, knowing you'd try to extinguish it with explanation. They liked you off balance, easier to manipulate, easier to manage. But something fundamental has shifted. Now, you no longer chase every spark with water. You let some flames burn themselves out. You don't meet chaos on its level. You no longer explain your peace to those who benefit from your distress. You don't match noise. You hold your center. And that kind of restraint, that kind of control, that is power they don't know how to hold. So they fear it when they see it in you. Your absence from drama doesn't come from avoidance, but from discernment. You don't pick up battles handed to you by wounded egos. You don't step into arenas built for your destruction. You listen longer. You pause more. You answer less. And somehow, without saying much, your silence becomes the loudest statement in the room. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. Those who once relied on your reactions now find nothing to feed on. Their accusations hit a wall. Their manipulation lands flat. Their tactics, once effective, now collapse under the weight of your restraint. They miss the old version, the one who cracked under pressure, the one who couldn't resist defending, the one always trying to prove their goodness. That version has retired. You've shifted from impulse to intention, from being pulled to standing planted. You no longer see every disagreement as an attack, nor every challenge as a threat. You process, you observe, you decide, you respond when it matters, and release what doesn't deserve a reply. You've redefined power, not as noise, but as presence. Now even your quiet unsettles them, because they can't predict you. They can't provoke what no longer lives in you. While they perform, you build. While they plot reactions, you plan futures. While they push buttons, you unplug the system. You're no longer available to chaos. Not because you're cold, but because you've learned that calm is a currency too expensive to spend on those who haven't earned access. And while they whisper that you've changed, they're right. You've changed frequencies, and not everyone can hear you where you now reside. There comes a moment, unannounced, unstoppable, when the fog lifts and you see yourself clearly, maybe for the first time. Not the shape molded by survival, not the echo of who others told you to be, but the essence that existed long before the wounds, the doubt, or the noise. This recognition isn't gentle, it is awakening, and once it happens, nothing stays the same. You stopped confusing your reflection with the labels others stuck to you. You stopped mistaking your past pain for your present identity. The stories you were handed, the ones that said you were too much, too little, too loud, too soft, have fallen away like old skin. The disguise that kept you digestible is gone. What remains is real, and real cannot be tamed. The memory of who you are didn't return with noise, but with certainty. You didn't need permission to step into it. You didn't seek approval to reclaim it. You just did, and that's what made it revolutionary. Now, there are no more borrowed titles, no more false humility wrapped in self-doubt. Now you move with the weight of someone who remembers their origin, not just their history, but their design. You no longer ask small minds to validate a limitless soul. You no longer tremble under the judgment of the unaware. You no longer seek safety in places that never saw your value. You've detached from the narrative that said you had to earn what you were born carrying. That story was never yours. And those who once benefited from your forgetfulness, they notice. The ones who were comfortable when you were unsure, hesitant, shrinking, they feel the difference now. You've broken out of the role they wrote for you. You're not rehearsing the lines anymore. You've rewritten the script. This version doesn't panic when misunderstood, doesn't fold at the first sign of resistance. This version moves with unwavering direction, not from pride, but from truth, not from performance, but from alignment. You are no longer driven by the need to be chosen. You are guided by the knowing that you already were. Some will call it arrogance. Others will say, you've changed. But what they really mean is, you've stopped being easy to contain. Your peace cannot be negotiated. Your clarity cannot be twisted. Your power cannot be borrowed. They no longer know how to interact with someone who has nothing left to prove. And here's what unsettles them most. You're no longer available to be managed by fear, swayed by shame, or shaped by manipulation. What they used to use to pull you back no longer holds. The thread has snapped. The cycle is broken. Because now, you remember your own name. This kind of awakening doesn't apologize. It doesn't seek comfort for being true. It simply is. And it radiates. The kind of radiance that doesn't ask permission, that walks into the room and shifts it. That holds space, not through dominance, but through authenticity. You didn't become powerful by accident. You remembered that you always were. So let them wrestle with the new frequency. Let them sit with their discomfort. Let them whisper. You are not here for approval. You are here to live fully, to lead boldly, to love without shrinking. You're not going back to the shadow of who you were. That chapter has closed. What follows is authored by someone fully awake.